Let's just move on to another issue for the time's sake. So, Shlomi, what is your issue? What do you need to fix? What do you need to get right?
Okay. There's some topics when it comes to technical issues in a greater scale. First one is obviously accessibility. Thanks to some good videos and some good guidance, there's a workaround to actually play the game in English. But as for the launcher, for the website, everything, they should really get on and make this accessible to the majority of people without using workarounds and form a player base. That's really, again, rather sooner than later. And when they start new tests, they really get their shit together in regards of how they deal with patches. I get that from Europe, I get very low rates apparently, the bandwidth to download the patch extremely low, but shipping another patch shortly before the test, even especially if the download rate is that low, that's just, it comes off as a bit unprofessional, and I think they need to deal with such issues. When it comes to the game itself, obviously servers are somewhere in China. Lag is an issue, especially for anyone who needs to charge, but just as well for archers and for every unit. You need to time your stuff, and I myself played on 300 plus MS, so yeah, gets kind of hard. Maybe if they want to expand, put a server in Europe, put one server in the US, and you can expand there. Apart from that, and I'm going to leave out the first day problems with commanders not unlocking after the battle or not leaving the battle. If you keep the private lobby feature, you should really fix it. The private matches didn't work properly. They ended early. They destroyed what I think was one of the most engaging and most professional matches I saw during the tests. And obviously, everybody or almost everybody had to deal with connection issues during those private lobbies, which was, as far as I know, not so bad in normal games. For me, I only disconnected for like 3 seconds one time. But if you ship a game, if you test it, these are all issues that shouldn't really be happening at the point when this game is in like third instance.
Okay, well, let me start with, for example, the generals, right, that you mentioned that they weren't returning. That stuff is also obviously quite frustrating, and it's a very basic issue that happens to a lot of people that absolutely needs to get fixed, and that actually doesn't have to do with servers being in China or whatever, right? It just gets stuck because some, well, maybe server side or game side issues, we don't know, but stuff like that. Like, yeah, come on, guys, it's about time you finally fix it. I mean, it was okay in the past, so that is most likely, because of the new environment. Previously, it was the Wargaming, ID. They had their own accounts, their own servers, so the game needed to work with this. Now it's new NetEase launcher, NetEase accounts, NetEase servers, so they need to change something in the game to work with this new environment. So they have managed to fix it in the past. They will need to fix it again. But, well, I'm pretty sure they will do it sooner or later, and, well, the sooner the better, because that's just frustrating. But, yeah, it was mostly gone. It was just, we had to wait like 30 seconds after the battle for a commander to get back after the initial first day issues, so they managed to fix that for the most part, so that's good. But yeah, a lot of issues that you've described. Well, okay. First of all, the servers are Chinese, and we are not going to get NA servers or EU servers if the game is not going to be released in the West. And for that, well, we first need to convince CA that there still is a sizable audience for the game in the West. And, well, here is the community. They have to do that by playing the game when it is online, showing them, because they definitely have data like that, to see how big of a percentage base or just number wise, how big of a player base is of the West compared to Chinese. And also how big of an engagement with Arena is also outside of the game itself, right? So for example, how many people are watching videos, streams, etc., because then that also drives the community forward and sales forward most of all, which is what CA sadly is going to be interested in the most. But well, that's just how companies and the world works, so nothing to really complain about here. But like those basic issues definitely need to be ironed out, because that just contributes to the game. Again, that's the main theme of this section, are just not feeling right, not feeling smooth. And all those issues will just turn players away from the game if one of the first contacts they have with the game is, well, not fun, riddled with bugs, and all kinds of other issues. So yeah, I'll just emphasize it again that they need to get those things right before the next big step, before the release, definitely, to keep the players engaged and not leave the game. Okay, anyone? Thoughts on the servers, connectivity issues, or launcher? No?
Follow
Okay.
me, George. Sorry.
I'll speak about the launcher then, since I kind of forgot about that. I was one of the lucky ones that, well, luckily for me, everything just worked. So I followed the instruction or just found a way myself and then created an instruction for other people in the form of my videos. But yeah, there was a lot of people coming to our Discord server asking for help and like, hey, I'm doing everything as you say in your guide, right? I follow your instructions, but I get this kind of error, I get this kind of error. It's like, how the hell do I fix it? And we, as a community in the West, right, gather around our Discord, were able to fix all of those issues, find some workarounds, like, okay, you do this. I don't know, for example, there was a ID window that popped up where they ask you for ID and you have to close it. But for some people, like the X just wasn't there and the window was bugged. And then we figure out, okay, make sure you're focused on that window in your windows, right? And then Alt F4, maybe once, maybe twice, because for some people once didn't work but twice did. Or just spam it until it works. And there were other issues that we managed to fix, but there were some issues that we just were helpless against because, well, we are not technical support. We don't know how this thing works, right? And it's just difficult for us to provide help. And yeah, a lot of people from the West that wanted to play the game just couldn't. So they need to definitely iron out that as well, because that is, well, the very barrier of entry. If you're not able to install the game, you're not going to play it. So yeah, they definitely need to look into that. And that is kind of more on the NetEase side. I guess they are the ones developing the launcher and all the patch deployment system and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's actually on NetEase to look into that, I imagine. Okay, George, let's start with you. What did you want to say about it?
I mean, I just wanted to say that obviously it's a key feature for us, but if you're trying to market towards that like Chinese audience, then issues like the language and the connectivity to the servers, it's not an issue for obviously Chinese people. And so whether they decide it to be a focus or not, I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, it's important to us as all Western audience people. But in my opinion, it can wait. You know, it's not like the game's unplayable. Yeah, it's quite annoying, the connectivity especially. But at the end of the day, I would rather have some of these features and balances to make it more attractive to the Chinese audience at first, personally, because otherwise I don't think we can get very far.
Yeah, we definitely need to come to terms with. Whoops, sorry, my microphone was muted. We definitely need to come to terms with, you know, the Chinese side of things, where a lot of things will be in Chinese and just in Chinese. And the official information we were getting before we actually got to play Arena for the first time on the NetEase launcher was that the game is not going to be available in English. And then it apparently turned out the game is not going to be available in English, wink wink, right? So it is still a nice gesture from CA and NetEase to gently allow the Western fan base to still play the game without larger issues. The issues we're talking right now are mostly technical and just it's not out of their ill will. If anything, it's just ill preparation. So that is something that they need to fix. But it's not like they're actively trying to prevent us from playing the game, as well. Technically, they should, right? Because China and their laws, right? So yeah, they're actually doing pretty well by the community itself. So I will give them that bonus. But yeah, the official release is in China, or if we want to call it a release, but it is published right now in China. And just the fact that we are able to play without larger issues, but there's still quite a lot of them, still pretty nice. Astolfo?
I was gonna go last. I wasn't gonna have much to say. If Fox has something to say.
Well, I have to agree with Mishtru. Actually, like, we can only be happy that we can play right now. The ping is not going to get better unless they have dedicated servers in Europe and North America, for example. So we have to live with that. It's not too bad. I think the launcher is the biggest issue right now for us Western people. Maybe it's in general in China as well. Maybe they just didn't have the capacity and the servers were overloaded sometimes, because sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, depending on the time of day. So maybe it's just a huge storm of people in China that wanted to play the game, or the server is just not powerful enough for the logging services. We don't know. So we just have to wait and see.
Yeah, in terms of the technical issues, right, it's not like they were experienced just by the Western audience, the Western players. They happen to everyone. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really talk with Chinese players, but it's just a fair assumption, right? If we had some issues with the launcher itself, where the download was bugged or whatever. Actually, no, because they have published an article on their website about how to fix some of those problems, right? They released an article where they gave workarounds around some of the issues. So it's pretty much confirmed that Chinese players also had those issues. Or maybe they just released it for the Western audience. I imagine us being far away from the servers and having some worse connection is a slight factor contributing to, those problems occurring more often on our side. But it's not like it's Western specific.
Yeah.
And
I
Astolfo?
have
Okay, Foxy?
I have, for example, 180 ping, and it's playable. Like, obviously it's not perfect, but it's good enough, I guess.
Yeah, especially for the situation we are right now. Okay, Astolfo, closing thoughts?
I agree with what everyone said. I think, sadly, this is not a Western game anymore, even though we would like it to be. It's not. We have to deal with the ping. The ping is what it is. They're not going to move servers over here. It's just not something a business would do. And as much as it hurts, because you guys play at 180, I play somewhere between 480 and 600. I definitely notice it, but again, I can't expect them to change that. And I'm honestly just glad that they are giving us some workarounds to let me play it in English, to let me play their game at all, honestly, because again, it's not ours anymore.